Imagine going to the market to buy groceries, and your wallet is a solid block of copper weighing nearly 20 kilograms. In 1644, that was the reality in Sweden with the $10 plåtmynt. Back then, money was not an abstract concept. Almost all global trade operated on what numismatics call a värdemynt, or a substance coin. A coin's purchasing power was exactly equal to the raw market value of the metal it contained. This is a 1907 British sovereign. It represents the strict physical calibration of the substance coin model. It had a legally defined value of £1 sterling, and to ensure that exact value, it was minted to weigh precisely 7.988 grams of 11/12 pure gold. In Sweden, the practice of officially regulating this metal began in the town of Sigtuna around the year 995, under King Olaf Skjotkonung. Before this, merchants had to manually weigh and test every single piece of silver before closing a deal. Stamping a coin solved that logistical nightmare. The king's face on the front of the coin acted as a state-backed technological seal. It told merchants they could skip the scales and trust that the metal in their hand was pure and correctly weighed. While the royal stamp eliminated the need to test the purity of silver, it locked the entire economic system to the physical elements themselves. A country's wealth was strictly limited by the heavy, tangible metals it could pull out of the ground. Because a coin's value was tied to its physical metal, it created an obvious vulnerability. Criminals began engaging in a practice known as clipping. They would systematically shave tiny amounts of silver or gold from the rims of the coins in circulation. They would carefully slice away the excess metal, collect the shavings to melt down for their own profit, and then pass the defaced coins back into the local economy at their original face value. Over time, this slowly drained the real wealth out of the entire system. To stop this economic bleeding, state mints had to engineer a mechanical countermeasure. They developed a technique known as edge security, or milling, to protect the borders of the coins. This animation shows how the security worked. A smooth edge can be clipped without anyone noticing, but if you stamp vertical ridges along the rim, like the Swedish mint did on the 1715 $1 kronen coin, any attempt to shave the edge instantly destroys the visual pattern, making the theft obvious to anyone. Mechanical engineering successfully protected the borders of individual coins, but no amount of clever stamping could solve a much larger macroeconomic crisis, a nation physically running out of precious metals. In the 17th century, Sweden faced a severe resource paradox. The nation was practically out of silver, but it controlled vast, lucrative reserves of copper. This animation shows the problem. Because copper traded at a fraction of the price of silver, trying to match the value of a small silver coin required a massive volume of copper. The physical realities of the metal broke the usability of the money. To make everyday purchases using this copper standard, citizens had to haul around impossibly heavy metal plates. This logistical friction forced the creation of that unwieldy 19.7 kilo plåtmynt we looked at earlier. By the early 18th century, King Carl XII had spent years waging the Great Northern War. These extended military campaigns completely emptied the national treasury. The heavy metal currency system collapsed under its own weight, leaving the state effectively bankrupt. Out of sheer desperation, the government introduced a radical logistical fix. They created early paper banknotes called transportsedlar and rolled out a series of emergency coins known as creditmynt or credit coins. Compare the massive copper plates of the previous century with the 1715 nödmynt. This was a tiny piece of copper weighing just 3.25 grams. Yet the government legally declared that it was worth $1 in silver. By stripping the actual physical value out of the coin itself, the Swedish state attempted to replace the heavy reality of raw metal with the abstract authority of the law. They created a system where money had value simply because the government dictated it. The public saw right through it. Citizens knew a 3-gram piece of copper lacked the value of a silver dollar. Trust in the currency collapsed. The coins were severely discounted in daily trade, and Sweden was hit with hyperinflation. The experiment in forced trust ended violently. After the king's death, the architect of the credit coin system, Finance Minister George Heinrich von Goertz, was blamed for the financial chaos and executed in 1719. Yet the core concept survived. Abstract money was simply too logistically efficient to abandon. Over the next 2 centuries, the physical ties to metal were gradually severed entirely, marked by the introduction of the Swedish krona in 1873 and the nation abandoning the gold standard in 1931. Today, every single coin and bill circulating in the global economy is a credit coin. Their value is entirely disconnected from any physical metal stored in a vault. This image highlights a modern Swedish 10 krona coin, featuring King Carl XVI Gustaf on the obverse alongside explanatory text. Notice how it still carries the traditional markers of a historical coin, despite being made of a cheap brass alloy. The monarch's face on the front of a coin no longer functions as a technological guarantee of metal weight or purity. Instead, it serves as a symbol of our collective abstract trust in the continuity of the state, the only thing that gives the metal in our pockets any purchasing power at all.